Welcome to the Integrate This podcast and another Tech in 10 episode. In this series, we're focusing on ChatGPT for Teachers, the free educator accounts that are available for all educators in the United States to be able to use. And in this episode, we are focusing on using this tool to help design meaningful lessons for us to use with our students. So let's dive in and get into our ChatGPT for Teachers accounts. You can see I'm already logged in. It says so down in this left-hand corner. And if you're not seeing that, it is just because what you need to do is to open up that side panel to be able to view that it is your account down there. So we're going to focus here on designing lessons. And as I open this up, I see that the 4 topics that it gives me is to plan a project activity, generate an image, make a topic more engaging, or create a slide. Well, as I look at this, this one happens to be one that might be a lesson that I would like to try. Is to plan a project activity. So let's just open that up. And when I do choose one of those tools from the bottom, it gives some pre-prompted things already added to it that I just need now to tell it more particulars about the group of students or the topic or subject area that I'm working on. And this one happens to be, I just need to focus on giving it a topic. For this particular episode, I'm going to focus on the 3 branches of government in the United States. Then a grade level. Well, let's say we're in a 9th grade civics class. If I can spell. And then any sort of other constraints or conditions that you might have. Like, for example, we're one-to-one Chromebooks. And again, the more information I give it, the more tailored to my specific needs it's going to get. But this should be pretty good here for what I wanted to do to start with. And so you could see it's spitting out already some ideas for a project called Power and Balance, designing a government that works. And then it goes into creating an overview of it. It gives me some driving questions, maybe a timeline to do. It lays out the unit plan into days of research, some application stuff. And so this looks like a pretty decent a unit plan that if I wanted to create more specified details for each of those different days or periods of time, I could definitely do that. It is a pretty easy and powerful tool. And you can see that I didn't spend a whole lot of time to create that one. But what if I wanted it to do an activity that it doesn't say right there? Like, it doesn't say anything about designing maybe a lesson hook that I can use to help kick off the unit. So let me just try this prompt here without selecting one of these tools and just paste that into the chat box that's on there and see what it does. So I told it I'm teaching 9th grade civics, a 5 to 7 minute lesson hook where we introduce the 3 branches of government and to help give the students some questions to begin to think about. And it relates it to who really runs the school. So in that sense, it's kind of nice. Students could be able to see the distinctions between how our government works at different levels throughout our society. And it returns that really quickly. And again, this is something that is a suggestion. If I were to take these and bring them into my own classroom, I would definitely tailor it to how I teach and how I think my students learn best, because I am the expert of my students, because I am the one that knows them and knows their learning strengths and where they need some more supports. Let's try another example here. Maybe I'm looking for something that's going to actually ask the students to maybe move beyond the lecture and maybe do an active student-centered learning activity. And so I'm going to ask it to start a new chat and create that particular one here, a short classroom scenario where students take on the roles within the three branches of government to see how a law is created. Because if you're a social studies nerd, kind of like I am, you know that the three branches each have something to do with laws and the passing and enacting of them and interpreting of them. So let's see what it does, what it creates here for this particular thing. And it is kicking out this idea from idea to law. I wonder if it tells me I should watch I'm Just a Bill, the good Schoolhouse Rocks thing. I don't see that right now in what it's spitting back at me. But another great way to help bring about more student-centered engagement within your activities and your lessons. Now, you might take this as it is. You might take this and just say, I like, this part of it here that is on the judicial, but I don't really like the legislative part. So maybe like ask it to rework some of that, because that is, again, another important, I think, prompting strategy, is that iteration part of it. And keep working with it until you do get it the way that you want it to be in the end. Let's look at one more here. This one is going to be a little bit more of about using AI to be a teaching assistant, and not necessarily the person that's doing all, or the entity that's doing all the work. That it's still going to be a good thing for adding that human centeredness to it. And so I'm calling it a meta prompt. And I'm going to paste that one into this new chat here. And it says, as a ninth grade civics teacher, before responding, what I want you to do is explain that you're focusing on instructionality when introducing the three branches of government, and that I want you to generate an introduction activity based upon that thinking. In other words, I'm not asking AI to do the work for me, but rather to help be a partner in helping to produce something that I think is going to be worth it for my instruction and my students. So here it's kind of kicking out some ideas here. Maybe we want to talk about the purpose before asking them to memorize what is the main function of each of those branches of government, to help establish some clear roles and real world connections, as well as creating some of those discussions about things like checks and balances. And you can see here, again, it's creating these three things. It sets it up for me here. But again, it hasn't done all the work for me yet, because I still need to then put these into practice. I still need to be the one that follows up and makes sure that the learning is actually taking place. For the small group part here, I need to consider things like the group sizes, maybe about who is best to be in which types of groups, or is it just random? And then, being able to be the content area expert and knowing my content well enough that I can facilitate a class debrief or discussion based upon those things. I'm not going to be able to have the AI do those things for me in that particular situation. So these are just some ideas here about how we could use ChatGPT for teachers to be able to help us design more effective lessons. And so I hope you are able to take something away from this particular episode, and look forward to having you join us in the next episode, which is going to be on designing materials to use in your classes as well. Thank you for watching, and have a great one.